One thing you have to know as a photographer if you want to make a living is the business side of it. Now, I talk a lot about shadow hacking and editing and presets and film and all that stuff on this channel, but I've been running my own businesses for as long as I can remember. In fact, I started selling apples to neighbors door to door to make extra money when I was like 6 years old. So I've always been fascinated and interested by customer experience and selling. Now, I follow a lot of groups on Facebook, and I a lot of times see newbie questions. And as someone with 20 plus years of experience, it's sometimes easy to say, well, no, obviously you don't do this way, but that's not how we grow. These are actually very legitimate questions, and I like seeing them. I love seeing them and responding to them. But on this group, this person asked, how much do you guys charge per image? I have a gallery of over 100 and my client wants to purchase all of them. Her service comes with 30. The session was $160. What would be a reasonable price for the other 70 images? My customer is hiring me to make them look amazing. I'm going to make sure I do whatever's necessary to make them feel that way. Now, I know photographers that have their process down so much that when they get to the end of a session, they show them literally one image. But it's not saying, here's one image and you can't have the other ones unless you give me more money. They've built that much trust with the client as if they are a painter that they're making one portrait, let's say, of their family. Now, this gets into higher level people that are selling wall portraits and things like that. But on a day-to-day basis, should you do this? Absolutely not. When you charge people for a session, they're hiring you in a world where everyone has a phone, where everyone has a camera, where everyone is a photographer and pretty much everything has a camera in it. And they're saying, we're trusting you to give us something more. Now, your experience level may vary and you may charge differently depending on that. Don't undersell yourself too much and don't pretend that you're an expert professional when you just got a camera 6 months ago and you haven't even learned the basics of light, shadow hacking, exposure, printing, presentation, etc. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Just be honest with yourself as you grow. But let me give you guys just a minute to understand why this is important. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you a couple other tips about creating great customer experiences that actually are really going to benefit you. The session was only $160. Okay, so they didn't charge much, at least if you're talking about United States or European standards, right? That's fine. Maybe you should charge more, but that's another discussion. The customer paid you to take portraits. They have a gallery of 100, he says, and they only get 30. Well, what does a gallery of 100 mean, first of all? If I go to my recent session from last week, you can see that in the course of this session, I took 500 photos. Now, more does not mean better. I've seen photographers say, oh, we take 3,000 photos at a wedding. I always used to tell people, like, you'll probably only get 300 images from your wedding because I'm giving you good ones. Having 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, the more images, when you get into these high numbers, it usually means you have less experience and you're just spraying and praying. So out of these 500, what actually goes to the client? Well, let's go down here and filter by 5-star only. We've edited this down to less than 100. There's now 92 images that were selected. Of those, I have probably 15 favorites. Now think about what I could have done. I could have said, well, I'm only going to give you 20 images and just given them the 20 favorites. There's nothing wrong with that if you only wanted to show them the best 20 images and you set that up and you put that in their mind and built that trust throughout the process. But go back to the question, how much should I charge for the others? Well, nothing. You shouldn't ever show the images that are bad. The rejects are there for a reason. They're rejects for a reason. What I always show you is the best. So I'm not going to give you a number. And I've said this to many clients in consultations in the studio. How many photos will I get at my wedding? Well, I don't give a number because my goal is to tell the whole story. There's no limit on hours. There's no limit on images. Normally, you'll probably end up with, say, 200 to 400 images. But the main thing is that your photos are going to be amazing. Portrait session. How many photos will I get? I don't stress too much about how many photos we take. I'm going to take as many or as few as we need to, as you're comfortable with. If you have changes of clothes, there's no limit. If you have more time that you want to put into it, as long as we have light to work with, as long as we have a cool place to shoot, we'll just keep doing it. It's never been a problem. I've never had a client say like, oh no, I want to shoot till midnight. They get tired before I do. Here's a complete wedding, right? All the videos, the fills, the B-rolls for making stories, the setup, the behind the scenes, the whole works. There are 2,151 photos. Let's filter down to 5 stars. Now, you can rate however you want, of course, but in generally speaking, in a client session, the clients are only going to see 5 stars, and then 4-star images I will sometimes mark as kind of a reserve. For example, when a new tool comes out, like the new pictorialist actions I just made, it gives me a new way to edit, a new way to see, a new perspective. I might go back, and I have been, as I showed you in this week's workshop, where I'll take those 4-star images that I rejected in the past, and now I'll edit them in a new way, and I say, wow, this is amazing. So I don't delete those 4-star and 3-star images, but the client's going to see the 5 stars. Now, if I show the 5 stars on here, there's 314 photos in the final. To me, this is perfect. Your client shouldn't be culling for you. You should be telling a story, making someone feel beautiful, showing someone's family. And if you're not doing that, it's not the client that needs to learn. It's you that needs to learn to be decisive, to be confident, to know the difference between which of these 3 images is the best. And that's something we talk about quite a bit on this channel, is understanding and building that level of confidence so you know when an image is great and when it's just okay, and you know why, and you know how to make it better next time. Now, I'm not trying to give you a number of how many images you should include, but what you say when you tell the client, hey, there's more good photos, but you have to pay more, is I'm just trying to squeeze you. You could say that's just, you can say you have a right to do it, and you do have a right to do it. But there's almost no case where it's going to be a benefit to you and your reputation in your business. You could take isolated cases, like maybe you shoot at a sports game, right? And you sell these small packages of photos, or at a speedway. I started out my career doing speedway photography. You know what though? Even then I never set a number. I would say to these racers, hey, I'm going to take your photos. I'm going to get you at least 10 photos tonight. Something like that, right? And I would usually over deliver. If I had 15, I didn't say, oh, you have to pay me an extra $10 for 15. If the photos were good and I already had them and it cost me nothing more, I was going to be giving them those photos, and I built a good reputation doing it, just like I've built a good reputation in all of my businesses for my entire life. Actually, when you take less photos, you usually get better photos. So don't think pressing the shutter button more is making better results. Usually holding down the shutter button is giving you worse results than taking photos individually. There's a pretty cool book called The Purple Cow about customer service and customer experience. I remember reading that over a decade ago. Throughout my entire business career, I've tried to really emphasize how to make people happy. We're serving them. Okay, now for that little story. I'm actually in charge of marketing and customer experience for a pretty large European style cafe down here in Mexico. Okay, now the culture is different down here, and sometimes they struggle with the concepts that I'm presenting. For example, it says on the menu, if you don't like anything, please return it and we'll make it again, right? We're one of the highest rated cafes in the area because our service is always put before making a few extra pennies. And so the experience, as I analyze on the one side my photography business, on the other side my Lightroom presets and my actions that I make for you guys, there's a reason I give you a guarantee. It wasn't always that way. I said one day, you know what? I want people to feel confident. Do I like giving refunds? Of course not. And a lot of times I help them resolve the problem. I'll give you guys a product in exchange. But ultimately, if the customer isn't happy with my product, I don't want them resentful about my product. I want people using my products that love them. That's why Filmist and Pictorialist and Silver and all this stuff that I make, within 30 days, anyone can return it. But you know what? They almost never do, because I make a good product. I know they can return it, and I'm always giving it 110% to make that product and that service the best it can be. In a culture where in a restaurant type setting, people aren't used to being like challenging you or creating what they perceive as conflict, as would, for example, be pretty normal if you were in a US restaurant and you sent your plate back because you didn't like it. People get uncomfortable with that here, but they see that level of service. Do you know how many drinks or plates come back? Not enough. So few, in fact, that I push it even more. I make it bold when I tell them this is how you're going to make the menus, because I want to see things coming back. If nothing is ever returned, if no one's ever complaining, they're just keeping silent. I want the baristas that are training at that cafe to learn when something's wrong, not just think it was okay. If they did a drink poorly, I want the customer sending it back. I want them to remake it, and yes, we'll eat that, because the customer leaves happy and everyone else learns. And so I'll tell them over and over again, you need to feel the room. You need to watch your tables. You need to see if someone's poking at their food like they don't like it. You need to see if the drink is 2/3 there when they go to leave, and you need to ask them, hey, did you like that drink? And if they say, no, I didn't like it, and they hadn't asked, you say, hey, here's a coupon for a free one next time. You make sure that before they walk out that door, you've resolved their problem. You always feel your customer, and the same applies to photography. If the customer says, hey, these photos are good, but is there any more? And you say, yeah, there's more, but you're going to have to pay extra. What you're actually saying to them is, screw you, I want more money. If you need more money, charge more up front. If my customer comes to me and says, hey, is there more photos from the wedding? I'll be like, well, there's some rejects and things like that. Is there someone in particular that we missed or that you're looking for? Or were you just asking? Oh, well, I was just wondering if there was more. There's some more, but they're mostly duplicates and copies and, ones that didn't turn out. So I always give you all of the best, and I never hold back. This is the kind of confident language you should be using in your photography business, and you should back it with your studies, your experience, your continued growth, and your investment in your own work. I hope this helps you guys. I thought this question was great, and that's why I wanted to do a video on it. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments. Hit that like, subscribe, and bell icon, and take care. We'll see you next time.